So everybody knows there will be a recording available online of this presentation. It will be available in about a week's time at muwekma.org. So thank you for those great presentations. We have a few questions that were sent in advance from attendees. If anybody does have a question from the audience, we'll be taking them soon, so get them ready. Our first question, let's go to Dr. Wilcox. Can you explain the difference between all of the various Ohlone tribes in the area, and are all of them part of this effort to get recognition?
That's probably a better question for Charlene. Chairwoman Nijmeh, I should say. Okay, so if you look back at your ancestry, we just did it in my class today talking about DNA and where you come from, right? If you go back, say, 10 generations, you have 1,024 ancestors possible, right? And if you go back 20 generations, you have over 2 million. So what does that mean? That means that people who live in places like this, where there are not large populations, are related to one another in ways that are deep in genetic history. But also the connections that Laura was talking about. This is a multicultural area. Those maps that we see with those colors that look like nation states, that would have made no sense to anybody from that time period, because nation states didn't exist at the time. So I think a way I explain it to students in my class, and I want Charlene to speak to this, is, think about your extended family. So I have, the Wilcoxes, the O'Connors, those are the two groups. I know everybody about one generation back. From Muwekma folks, it's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 generations back. And you think about all the complexity of those relationships, and it's pretty amazing. But also we have to think about political interests today, and that even though people may be correct in asserting an ancestry to this area, the government that has represented the 600 plus members of the Muwekma Ohlone tribe is an elected group. There's a constitution. It's not just an individual or a family saying that they're in charge of the story of Muwekma or Ohlone people. And it's the only democratic kind of institution that allows for the accommodation of all those groups, should they choose to come into the tribal, into the tribe's roles, right? So I think Charlene could probably do a better job because she's aware of the specifics, but did I get it pretty close?
Sure, I could get into detail here. The mission system, when they came, most of the Ohlones were decimated. I mean, we were wiped out. And there was a very small few that did survive. And we ended up in Mission San Jose. But we also have a mix of other groups because, like Laura and Michael said, these groups came out from the outside, Central Valley into this area because the Ohlone people were dying at a very high rate. But to the surviving social political community, that is Muwekma. That is the tribal nation, because there are 10 core families on our council. And these core families represent each and one of these members, these 614 members in our tribe. We do have other Ohlones. And when I say Ohlone, these are direct family to us. They just choose not to be a part of the nation for whatever reason. But anyone else claiming to be anything other than Ohlone, I can only say the only surviving community, political, social community that the government acknowledged in the early 1900s was the Verona band, which Muwekma Ohlone is the successor. Anyone else might have ancestry, but they're not considered under Native American tribe to be a legal Native American tribe. Did I answer that correctly, Laura? Without disparaging anyone.
No, I think it's really important to respect that there are families and individuals who are legitimately indigenous descendants, mm-hmm. but they don't have tribal governments.
Right.
And so at Stanford, we respect their heritage. Our door is always open to them if they want to come and talk to us about something. We recognize the tribe. We have a land acknowledgement to the tribal government. And so there are important differences between authentic indigenous people who may live here and not feel that they wish to be enroll as members of the tribe, and the tribal government. And so this is a political difference. And it shouldn't in any way diminish the voice of anyone, right? But it's important to recognize that there's only one tribal government. And there are other families that will call themselves tribes. And I think that's really a legacy of the division and the colonialism and the displacement. They are also victims of colonialism and displacement. And I'm hopeful that someday when justice arrives, that they will see the benefit of joining together with their families into the tribe.
Right, and to answer the last question, is there any other tribe in the Bay Area seeking federal recognition? Muwekma is the only one who has sought federal recognition, also as well as our neighboring tribe, Amamutsun, and Eslen, Ohlone Coast-known Eslen Nation. There are no other groups or nations that have sought federal recognition.
So I think we have some questions lined up.
We'd like to invite anyone who has a question to walk over here to the microphone or to raise. I'm Matt McCorkle. I teach economics and history here. I'm curious, have other tribes in the 20th or 21st century achieved federal recognition and inalienable land? And if so, what were the consequences for their people? Thank you.
The one who is closest similar to our recognition was Little Shell, Chippewa Indians, right, in Montana. In 2019, they were very similar, situated like Muwekma. They went through the federal acknowledgement process and were denied based on the same issues as continuity. I mean, because that's what the BIA said is our we withered away. From 1927 to 85, we did not continue to exist as that social political community. So this tribe in Montana also was denied on the same issues, but they were successful through legislation with their 2 senators and passed a bill with full sovereignty, full rights to function on their own lands.
Do you also want to mention the 3 tribes in California?
Oh, right, okay. So the other, this was, how long ago? Tejon and...
Just the last decade.
Last decade. So there were 3 other California tribes in similar situation as Muwekma. And here's the key thing, is that because we were acknowledged by the federal government, we should have never gone through the federal acknowledgement process. And our previous chair understood that, and also these other chairmen and chairwomen of these other California tribes understood that as well, is we were already acknowledged by the federal government, so we should have never gone through that process, because that process is for tribes that were never acknowledged by the federal government. But what happened with, they were restored, as simple as the BIA, the assistant secretary writing a letter saying they made a mistake and they're going to correct this mistake because we forgot about them. We ignored them for whatever reason, we forgot. And a letter saying we are putting them back on the list. And that was Tejon tribe in Bakersfield and the tribe in, man, it's slipping, the 2 other tribes.
Lower Lake.
Lower Lake, and there's another, Ione in 1994. So these 3 tribes were very similarly situated, and we asked for the same treatment, and they've denied us. And I say they denied us because of the very lands that we were born on. They are too valuable to leave to the Indians. I mean, this is one of the wealthiest places in the nation, in the world, Silicon Valley, and they don't want Indians here.